So I teach entrepreneurial journalism at the City University of New York. And we have hands across the river here to Montclair State, working very closely with Debbie and Judan, and up north with Joe. So I believe that journalists need to be able to start businesses and run businesses, also need to be able to understand the business of journalism, so that we are good stewards of it. So at CUNY, I run the nation's first master's degree in entrepreneurial journalism and a certificate in entrepreneurial journalism. This summer, you'll hear more about this in a second, we're going to do a program in beat businesses. So part of what we've done, Judan showed you a link that you'll get later, or get again, for modeling that we did at CUNY for the news ecosystem. Ecosystem is a word I carry about a lot, right? Media used to be controlled by big vertically owned monopolies, as Debbie said. It was a great business while it lasted, but bye-bye, it's gone. Right? And so what is that replaced by? It's replaced by ecosystems of many, many players. And I believe, and I believe firmly, that we're going to see this. And so the modeling we did was about 4 years old now. We're redoing it right now. It'll be out very, very soon. Where we looked at an ecosystem at the time the size of, let's say, Boston, without a big newspaper. Because at the time, the Boston Globe looked like it might die. Thank goodness it didn't. And we did a lot of research looking at hyperlocal sites, small, medium, and large, networks around them, and so on, to figure out what the economics were in this marketplace. And we found hyperlocal blogs covering markets of 50, 60,000 people who were able to bring in upwards of, very scattered examples of this across the country, but upwards of $200,000, $250,000 a year. How good does that sound to most of you? Right? Right? So what it says is, it is possible to have a sustainable business covering a local market. Now, I want to branch a little bit past that notion of just the hyperlocal blog to what I now call the beat business. A beat can be a business, right? And a beat can cover a town or a neighborhood of a city. A beat can cover communities, right? Ethnic communities, old people like me, whatever that may be. A beat can cover a topic like sports or cancer, an interest that people have and a need they have. A beat can also cover businesses, right? Business to business. I also think there's a possibility of beats to do things like cover the Federal Communications Commission. I would make a business out of that. You can see that working, right? Because there's a very interested market in that if you can do that in depth. So a beat is somebody who really knows something, who covers it in depth, who serves a clear and distinct market. And then around that market, I firmly believe that there can be businesses that are sustainable. And the best proof sits right in the room with the queen of hyperlocal, Debbie Gallant. And Debbie and I disagree about her founding myth, but I was proud to be there at the beginning of BaristaNet when I was at NJ.com, starting that years ago, and delighted to see what Debbie has done and what others across the country have done. And there are models for how this works. So we now know what it is. It's like starting a bakery. When you start a bakery, you may have the best idea for cupcakes no one has ever seen, but at the end of the day, you still got to buy flour, most of you, and sugar, and you got to get a health department permit, and you got to have a storefront, and you got to have mixers, and you know what the business looks like. Well, same for this. Joe knows what the business looks like, and we can tell you that and work on that, and that's what we intend to do. Now, I was listed erroneously as an advisor for Patch. I never was an advisor for Patch because they never took my advice. And my advice was that Patch was not going to succeed by trying to own the country top down. That instead, hyperlocal is going to work bottom up. My other advice to Patch was that it should have played well with others. In networks, it didn't. It was the nasty kid who said, we're going to take our ball and go home. And finally, my advice was that it should have had some more fun in its voice. It should have been a voice of local communities. But I do strongly believe in hyperlocal. I do believe it's possible. The dynamics that are true of covering Montclair will be true of some of these other areas, right? Because the market you're covering just isn't geographically bound, but you better have a clear market, there better be a clear need, and so on. Right, so even though some of you are not covering towns, I'm still going to concentrate in some measure on towns because of what's happening here at Montclair State and New Jersey. So, as I said, I believe in this notion of ecosystems replacing big old vertically oriented monopolistic media A lot of different players doing a lot of different things. The line that I blogged many years ago that's been the most retweeted that I've ever said is do what you do best and link to the rest. This is an age of specialization where you can do something small, you can do it really well, you're the best who does that, and then you live in an ecosystem of others who are doing what they do well. And so as we come to New Jersey, this is really kind of my Frankenstein's lab for my ideas because it's such a fertile ground, because Debbie is here, Judan is here, Montclair State is interested in this. Also the Dodge Foundation has been very, very helpful in funding and supporting this woman who's not here today named Molly Diaguiar, who's just a great supporter of us. So as a result of that, the center was started here at Montclair State, if I may speak for the center a bit, and the New Jersey News Commons. The New Jersey News Commons does some really important things that are unique in the country. Debbie started if I speak for Debbie, she'll kick me under the table very quickly if I get it wrong, believe me. And if I'm going into your territory, stop me. No. So, because I think Debbie's going to talk about Bristonet. Started a network that enabled the sites to share content and thus share audience. Right? That's thinking like an ecosystem, rather than saying, Patch said, we're going to destroy Bristonet. Well, that's stupid, right? NJ.com, with whom I also work now, says, we're glad Bristonet exists, and Red Bank Green, and so on and so forth, because we can't do everything anymore. We never really could, but we had this myth that we could. And instead, if you exist, we're going to link to you. So NJ.com is delighted that NJ Spotlight down the hall exists because Spotlight does work that NJ.com and the Ledger can't afford to do anymore in some ways. And so now what happens is that Debbie found this company that has a product called Repost.us that makes articles embeddable like YouTube videos. Duh, right? Why shouldn't articles be embeddable just like YouTube videos? If the article, the post, if we call it that in a blog, can travel with its brand, its revenue, its analytics, and its links attached, and if other people will embed it, then great. Let your content, fly free. Children, go out in the world. And it also means that each entity can be more efficient and that it doesn't have to try to do everything. So it's not just do what you do best and link to the rest, do what you do best and embed the rest. So now NJ.com is giving traffic and audience and attention to the good work of other members of the ecosystem. The other members of the ecosystem can now use NJ.com content on their sites, and the members of the ecosystem can use content across each other. So they're sharing content and they're sharing audience. Now the next thing that I want to see happen, and Kenny very much wants to see happen, is for them to start sharing advertising and revenue across that. Because if a blog in North Jersey, if Bristonet has an ad for a local hairdresser, it's unlikely that people down in Red Bank are going to drive the 100 miles to go get their hair cut and take advantage of the coupon up there. So what we need to have is ad networks that rise above that, and we're talking about doing that. So the Commons is doing a lot of things to try to make the members of the ecosystem succeed together. Sharing content, sharing audience, soon I hope sharing advertising through other agents who will sell, a lot of training, a lot of support and mentorship, and other kinds of support. So the Commons is a very important entity that exists to make this ecosystem fertile and fertilized and to exist. How many of you are from New York? Okay, well good, because I get in trouble because I teach at the City University of New York. And I get trouble for spending so much time in New Jersey. But we're also doing a lot of work in New York. At CUNY, where I teach, my colleagues started the Center for Community and Ethnic Media. It also offers training. It also brings together various entities. It also does translation of a lot of ethnic media into English so it can be traded around and get more attention. It's trying to help ethnic publications do better at digital. They're helping now the Commons in New Jersey try to connect more to ethnic media here in New Jersey, and the Commons is trying to help the New York Center connect more with the bloggers there to help set up similar networks there. So we hope this is a model that spreads out, from New Jersey to New York to Philadelphia to the world soon. So these are resources to help you work. What I believe very, very firmly is that the ecosystem must first and foremost grow. It's not big enough. In New Jersey, we have 565 towns, otherwise known as opportunities for corruption. And we need more coverage of that. We need more watchdogs on that. We need more attention to the towns and what they exist. The patch vision was not wrong at all. It was quite right. People care about their towns. They want to share things there. Patch, I just think, made the aforementioned mistakes, and I think it also didn't build a community for communities to share their own information very well. And so these are things you can all do now. So I hope that every ex-patcher out there tries to start a site covering towns that need coverage. So there's a few things that have to happen here. So let me start here. Joe is going to go into the modeling of how this works, and Kenny will go into sales, and so we'll have another session on sales this afternoon. And I'm not a salesperson, so I don't want to get in detail here. But yes, you got to sell. Yes. You have to worry about the business of journalism. You can't just say, I'm going to do my wonderful content, and somehow manna will fall from heaven and feed me and thus feed the community. It ain't going to happen. You have to worry about creating a business that is sustainable. And there's many ways to sustain that. The first and foremost, Judon said it's not going to be entirely advertising, and I think I would agree, but it's going to be primarily advertising. So you got to deal with this notion of advertising. You have to get over whatever fears you have about that. Now, in an ideal world, you're the content person, you have a partner who's the ad person. Hallelujah, but that means you got 2 mouths to feed. Well, if you're, as Joe will point out later, if you're married, that helps a lot of times because you also only have one roof over you until the business gets to be so contentious that you then have to have 2 roofs, but that's another question for you. But it's great if you can have a partner, but at first, maybe you're just one person. And in the old, this is church and this is state, right? And you got to do it all yourself. But if you have to, you have to. And then when you get big enough and successful enough, as BaristaNet did, then you bring in a salesperson. But Debbie was a journalist who had to learn to go out and sell, right? And she's going to tell you that story, and that matters. And in the end, it's not quite as scary as you think because you're talking to members of your community. You're helping the businesses in your community, as you said. They're part of the community too. They care about the community as well. And you'll deal with the conflict issues, right? If the restaurant killed somebody with food poisoning, you got to report that, even if they're an advertiser, right? You'll deal with that stuff, right? You'll figure that out because trust is your primary asset. But you've got to deal with advertising. So the first thing, when we modeled what the ecosystem looked like, we wanted to see how we could make the businesses look better and be better businesses. And so there's a few levels of this to talk about. But the first, in the industry, when we talk about journalism as a whole, the thing we don't talk about because it's uncomfortable is cost. The cost of running a media property has gone way down. For big newspapers and the people who work for them, that's bad news. For you, it's great news. Because you can use WordPress as a platform and publish tomorrow, and your costs are de minimis to nil at that level, right? Your technology costs, your production costs, your distribution costs, and all that. So your cost structure is very low. That's the great news about this. Now we go to the revenue. The revenue is harder, but the revenue is obviously and clearly necessary. And there's various revenue streams to explore. Advertising on the sites. When you look at these sites, you'll see that there's advertising there. You've got to get, well, I'm sorry, I think I'll stop here. Before you get to advertising, you've got to have an audience, because what do you sell to advertisers? Right. You're selling the people who you have there. So you have to have a good product. You have to have an audience. I wasn't going to use this, but I'll do this. For my students, I constantly draw this. That you start a new business, down here, you got nothing. You got zero, zippo. The first thing you build is content. And you have to get enough content to get a critical mass before you can start getting audience. And you have to get enough audience before you can get a critical mass that you start getting revenue. And then somewhere out here is break even or profitability. Right? But this structure, you have to have, as Judon and Joe and Judon both emphasized, you have to have a good brand with product and trust and value to people. You've got to be serving what they need in their community. Then you start getting an audience and they start promoting you as well, but you've got to promote yourself. You've got to get out there on Twitter. You have to get stickers into the restaurants. You have to do all that. Then you have enough to be able to serve the advertiser. So the advertising starts with your product and your audience and the marketing that goes into that. But then when you do have enough, you go out and you start selling to advertisers. And for many of you, this is going to be community advertisers of various communities and various definitions, but you're going to have to be able to get them in and show them that you're going to bring value to them. Now, they're busy business people. They're cheap because they have a hard time. They have all kinds of difficulties. You better see yourself as a solution for their problem. You better see a way that you are helping them do what they want to do. It may be bringing more people in. It may be bringing more people in on Thursdays because that's quiet, or for lunch, or to buy hats, or whatever it is. You want to listen to what their problems are. You're a journalist. You're good at listening. Well, kind of good at listening. Journalists are good enough at listening enough to get the quote they want for the story they wanted to write. But you got to listen more, and you got to hear what they need. Now, that's one level. So figuring out the right advertising product for these businesses. There's another level, somewhat controversial. If Debbie were in here, she'd growl at me a little bit. But since she's not, I'll say this. I also think there's a lot of opportunity in digital services for these advertisers. If you're really good at websites and Twitter and Facebook and things like that, then helping them with their digital lives is also an opportunity, I think. Now, that could be a whole big business in itself. That could be very time-consuming. You've got to make it efficient and profitable for yourself. But I think there are opportunities, even before you have a large audience, where you can start to help local businesses with their digital lives and get money for that. Some people are making a whole business basically out of being an agency for locals, and the site is almost a sideline. You'll figure out that balance. We did some research at CUNY. You can go to townight.org, TOWKNIGHT.org, which is my site. Under research, you'll find all this. You'll find our models, and you'll find this work I'm about to mention. We looked at 500 local businesses in a neighborhood of New York and 500 in a town in New Jersey. And we asked how digital are they by looking at their digital presences. And it's a way to score the business and give them a grade. You know, do they have a Facebook page? How active is it? Do they have a newsletter? How active is it? Are they on Twitter? How active are they? Are they on YouTube? And so on and so forth. And you can walk into a business and say, ma'am, you get a C-. Your digital life is pretty pathetic, but I can get you to at least a B+ for only $200. And act now and I'll give you a knife, you know, right? Right? So that's one opportunity, is other services that you can do, other ways that you can help the local business. Couponing, deals. One of my students now is working on, in Newark, is working on kind of a local affinity card for local businesses and trying to do that with a vendor. So there's a lot of things that you can do with those businesses. And we at the center / the Commons and also at CUNY are trying to work on some initiatives here. And one of them is trying to get better ad packages, better ways to sell packages to local businesses. And then also ad training people how to sell, how to go in, how to get over the nerves of picking up the phone or going into the business and what to do, how to create materials for what you take in to sell. All right, so we're trying a couple other revenue streams here in New Jersey and trying to experiment with this. And these are nascent things. We're just beginning with this. One is events. We find that a lot of local sites have some success with events. The classic of this is in Brooklyn. The Brownstoner started running a flea market, and it became the business. It became huge. And then the blog is just basically a marketing vehicle for the flea market now, of Brownstoner in Brooklyn. Brooklyn-based does block parties. There are craft fairs. There are all kinds of things that you could do as events. Here or nearby in Morristown Green runs a film festival every year. Low key, but puts out a pamphlet and a program with ads in it. One of the things we want to do is to see whether or not it's possible to create a business, an independent business that just is an itinerant event holder for all the sites in New Jersey. Right? Could go around and go to your site, then your site, then your site, then your site, and run events where you take a cut. And what we have to ask is that profitable? We also want to look at whether or not it's profitable to create a back shop for ad production. We want to look at whether it's profitable to create a back shop for digital production for places, where it costs me $100 to make this, you can sell it for $200. Does that work? We don't know yet. This is stuff we're trying to experiment with, but we want, Dr. Frankenstein, you're the laboratory. We want to figure out whether this can help make these individual businesses more sustainable And it's the opposite of patch, because we're trying to get scale from the bottom up. Right? By the time we have 50 sites and then 100 sites, and all those 100 sites are sharing an event business or a back shop, does that make every site more sustainable? That's our hope. We don't know yet. We do not know yet. Emphasize that, underline that, put it in bold. Right? We don't know yet, but we're trying to look at that. So events are a potential revenue stream. Now, I believe firmly that you all should be profitable, capitalistic, and greedy, and successful beyond your wildest dreams. Because I think that profitability is the essential sustainability for media. I mean, you can also get network ads. How many of you who have sites have Google ads up on your site? I can tell you I do, and I shouldn't have quit my day job, right? You're not going to get much money from that. But it is, hey, it's a little more money. You can also put up Amazon affiliate ads. You can also put up network ads, right? And I think you can do this through Kenny's ad network, where if you don't have an ad, you could get an ad from a national network in there. Those tend to be very low value. Now, at some level, you want to say, yeah, what the hell, I'll take the revenue. At some level, you say, it's junking up the site, it's not really doing much. You've got to decide that. Now, programmatic advertising is a little bit different. I don't want to go into detail since Kenny's going to, but just if you go, for those of you who don't know what it is, if you go to Amazon, you look for a pair of boots, and those boots travel around after you on the net for the next 2 weeks. Quick story. So I went to a link, and I ended up at Glenn Beck's site. Believe me, I'm a Hillary Clinton Democrat. I'm not going to Glenn Beck's site as a rule. So and it was amazing. There was a big site there for survivalist food. An ad for that. I was so amused by this. I wanted to put it on Google+, so I went to the site. Big friggin' mistake. Because they're thinking, we got one, we got a nut job, let's sell them the food. And so it's been traveling around with me for now a month. Every goddamn day I've seen, the end is coming, buy the cans of beans. And it's driving me friggin' crazy. Finally, though, I found out there was a way to click on the ad choices and say, don't show me this ad again. I said, yes, don't show me. What's happening in that case? This is injurious to the business model of media, is that advertiser, or Amazon with the boots, says, we want Joe because he wants those boots. And you know what? We used to have to put that on sites where boot people might be likely to go, so we're going to put it next to the content where that might be available. Instead, they're going to say, we don't care about that. As long as we know it's Joe, we'll show him the damned ad for the boots until he's sick of the boots and buys them, right? And that takes away the value of media and makes us just a commodity, a place to put an ad. So there's some danger, Will Robinson, there. Can you get a small piece of national network advertising, including that? Yeah, but it's going to be de minimis. All right, so events are an opportunity. The other thing we want to try in New Jersey to experiment with, even though I was saying a minute ago that I believe in profitability, and I believe that that's the way most of this works, and yes, there are wonderful things like New Jersey Public TV and WNYC, and they're supported by your generosity, unless you're a greedy, selfish bastard and don't give them money, which they remind you of 3 times a year. And that's wonderful. So I think that local sites have to be profitable. I don't think that they can depend upon the charity of others. However, let's try for a little charity. So we're going to try for a membership campaign with some of our sites in New Jersey. We haven't done this yet. We have the good expertise of WHYY and WFMU, and we're going to try that as one of our projects here in New Jersey. Now, what does membership mean? It could just mean I'm generous, I give you some money. It could mean that I get some privilege. Like, look how Kickstarter operates, that if I give you money, I get to go to the set of the movie I help fund. It could mean that there are tiers. It could mean that I'm helping you with a very specific project. I really want you to hire somebody to look into the potholes in town for 3 months, and I'll help pay for that, right? So there's membership / patronage models we want to experiment with. We don't know whether they'll work. Again, underline boldface, we don't know. But we're going to try. That's the advantage of being affiliated with these good guys, is that we're trying to figure out these models. Any other revenue streams I've left out? Oh, affiliate. So if you're doing travel, you're travel, right? Yeah. So travel, that's actually a good area because there's high online provable transactions. Somebody bought a ticket. And there's opportunities to put up affiliate ads where you get a cut. So I wrote 2 books, What Would Google Do and Public Parts. You can buy them both on Amazon now, plus my ebook, Gutenberg the Geek. And if you go to my site and do that, if you click on the link there, I have the affiliate deal set up so that if you buy the book, my publisher gets the money because I haven't earned out the advance. But I get, I don't know, 6%.
You haven't earned out the advance?
No, fuck, no.
I feel so much better.
I told my agent before she left the business that if I ever got near a publisher again, to shoot me and then tie me up. So anyway, if you buy my books, aforementioned on my site, I will get 5% from Amazon. So every once in a while, I get a gift certificate from Amazon for $13, and I put it in there, right? So like Google Ads, no way to get rich, but it may even be that local commerce may take over more and more and more. I mean, you look at the fact that Google's doing local delivery, Amazon is doing same-day delivery. I think that local commerce, local retail is going to change coming up forward, and local sites have to figure out how to have a piece of that transactional revenue. Whether it'll happen or not, I don't know. Point now, have I left out any revenue streams? Right. So the point of this is, Judon's right? Advertising is not the be-all and end-all. Advertising is, I think, going to be the biggest chunk. And if you look at the business modeling we have done and the new modeling we'll have up at Town Night, you'll see how big a chunk that is. And you'll see the assumptions that go into that chunk, how much audience you have, how much you can charge for that audience. Even if you don't bill the advertiser this way, even if you go to the advertiser and say, this is $300, ma'am. If you have an audience of 2, that's a very high rate for those 2 people. If you have an audience of 10,000, $300 looks okay. Right? So that's the calculation they're in essence going through, is to see what am I getting for this? And how targeted are you to their needs? Right? Is this a good place for you to advertise? You're not going to advertise hats on a site for headless people, right? It's not going to work. So targeting and compatibility work. How am I doing here? Okay, wow, plenty of time. Good. So revenue will add up to a pool. Now, finally, the question you've all been dancing around this morning, because has any of you ever sold an ad? And at first, you're starting from 0. You've got nothing. You're just trying to get your content going. You're trying to get your audience going. You're trying to prove what? You're gonna have to go out and face the capitalistic devil and sell. I'm just going to say that. Shudder, but you're going to have to do it, right? And you're going to find it's not so bad, and you're going to have to grapple with your ethical issues of what you separate and who you won't take as an advertiser, like survivalist food, and so on, right? There's no survivalists in New Jersey because we know we're doomed. It's over when the zombies come. So you're going to have to do that. Now, at some point, if you grow big enough, then yes, you can hope to have a partner. You can hope to bring in somebody. You hire someone, a partner, who can handle business. Pricing is one. Right. Also, packaging. How are you packaging this gesundheit? How are you selling this? Right. 3 is sales techniques, and how are you picking prospects? What are the signals you use for that? 4 is how are you getting the nerve to pick up the call and what do you say? Pick up the phone. What do you say when you march in? All those kinds of things. So you're here to, you have CUNY's research, which is being redone right now. You'll see what kind of rates we saw in the marketplace. You have the groups that already exist here, like Lion. You have groups that exist here at Montclair State. These are all incredibly valuable resources. And mind you, the big old lions of media, so to speak, wouldn't do this because they were monopolies and secretive. Right? This is the huggy, kismety ecosystem. This is the group hug that we have. So depending upon each other and trying to share best practices. The other thing that's possible here, I forgot to mention this too, this is important, is ad networks. And ad networks are going to work in a few layers. So once you get going, you're in great shape, and your next town over, they've got a blog in great shape. And you've got 30 or 50 or 100 blogs across the market. Right? There's a few things that can happen. Kenny is going to enable you and the 3 blogs around you to say, I've got the furniture store in town. People come from a long way around for this furniture store. They don't just want my town, they want those towns too. So I know what it takes to go to their blogs and sell my advertiser on all 5 blogs, and vice versa. This guy over here has the spa and wants to sell into your town. Hallelujah, right? That would be great. So that's the beginnings of infrastructure to do that. And then the other infrastructure that I want to see happen that hasn't happened yet is to aggregate the audiences of all the sites in New Jersey and enable somebody big, like NJ.com, to go to Circuit City, to go to a big area and say, wow, I've got a large audience now. That's the way you're going to get into the big leagues, is by being in a network with other people, a network of value, not a network of survivalist ads, but a network of people. And that's going to take some effort. So we're looking at trying to figure out what some shared things that we can do. One question was raised earlier from someone who I think is not here now, is can we share game software? I don't know, if enough of you want it, maybe we could. Could we share backshop for production? Well, we don't have that now, maybe we could. But at the end of the day, yeah, you still got to know who your advertisers are, what are you charging, who your advertisers are, have they paid, and all that. You have to get into that. Now, maybe that's where you need the first partner. Maybe you need to find somebody who's bored at home and they can do this work at any hour they want at home, and you throw them a little money, not much, but a little money to help you with that so that you can do the more valuable work of these things. Right? Underlying this is production, a P for production, right? If you can get some help with that, okay, but you got to pay them for it. Their work has value. One last thing from me, and then any questions you want, or else we can end early or whatever you'd like. So this summer, as I said earlier, I run a Center on Entrepreneurial Journalism. And some people have big ideas, and some people want to start beat businesses like this. But I want to do more and more and more in beat businesses. And so this summer, knock on wood, if we get to a right agreement and figure out the costs, I intend to run the first intense training in beat businesses at CUNY. And it'll be 3 weeks full time. Absolutely intense, where you come in, you get your content product in shape, you have mentors like, I don't know, somebody I know, help you with your content product and get that in good shape. You get your sales in good shape, your sales materials, your sales pricing, your sales offerings. You go out on sales calls, you deal with the devils of that. You get your marketing in shape, marketing materials. One thing we're going to do in New Jersey is have templates for marketing materials. Your technology is in shape, because I'm going to tell you it's one word, WordPress. I think it's one word, right? Space out. Yep. Good. Right. So we're going to have a class of no more than 12 people this summer. So if you're intensely interested in that, let me know. I'm easy to find. Just Google Jeff Jarvis, and believe me, other people find me, including survivalists. You can find me too.